right, that music you're hearing can only mean one thing. It is Oscar season here on the Cult Popture podcast. That means we are going to be breaking down everything there is to know about the 96th Academy Awards. Hosted by everyone's favorite late night talk show host, Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah.
So,
wait, you're Jimmy Kimmel? Oh, the Oscars will be hosted by.
Yeah, I'm Richard Martin. I think people know that.
No, well, I mean, in my mind, I was thinking he'll be talking about the more popular of the ceremonies, which is the Cult Popture Oscars cheat sheet, which I don't think we've booked Kimmel on.
Well, here he is.
It's Matt Damon.
I hate Matt Damon.
So,
like Jimmy Kimmel.
Very nice. Over the next 2 episodes of the Cult Popture podcast, this week and then in 2 weeks' time, I think, we're going to be looking at the 10 films nominated for Best Picture. And when I say we, I am, of course, referring to myself, your always host of the Cult Popture podcast, Richard Martin, my most of the time co-host, AJ.
It's an honor just to be nominated.
And my seldom co-host, Aaron Richardson. Sometimes actor, sometimes friend, sometimes co-host.
Thank you so much. It's never an honor to be nominated, only an honor to win.
Yes!
So glad to have won the spot on this podcast.
To have won the nomination,
appreciate
as it were.
the grind set there, Aaron. That's what we encourage
this gig
here
economy.
on the Cult Popture podcast.
Truly always be hustling, and that's me. You know, that's why I come on the podcast. You got to spin many plates.
We do.
We are going to be looking at a bunch of the films nominated for Best Picture today. We're going to be looking at 5 different ones. We'll get to those in a second. And in between talking about those films, when we want to take a little break, we might look at some of the other categories and just sort of see, if there's any controversy in that category, because there is a bit of controversy this year. We'll share our thoughts, which is something that you can't hear at any other podcast. You can't hear our thoughts on any other podcast. You can hear
That's true.
billions of people's thoughts, or just log on to Twitter and you can hear a lot of people's thoughts about various wrongdoings of the Academy.
You're making us a little joke here, but genuinely, what you need to do as a content creator is to create a brand so that it doesn't matter that you're talking about it the same thing as everyone else.
Well, they're like, I want to know what Aaron has to say.
I want to know what Aaron has to say. Aaron.
Will somebody please get Aaron Richardson so he can tell me what he thinks about 9/11?
9/11? I didn't realize it was even nominated.
What did you think of it?
Very anti. Very anti 9/11.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, we take an anti 9/11 position on this podcast, which is not to say we don't inexplicably talk about it quite a lot, but that doesn't mean we thought it was a good thing. God, who told you that?
Well, one thing before we get to the films, there's an interesting piece of news that's happened in the last week with the Oscars, is that they've said they're going to be adding a new category to the Oscars for Best Casting, which is an interesting thing. A lot of people are like, they should retroactively give it to Robert Downey Jr. for Iron Man. And it's like, well, that's not really how the award would work, I'm sure. I'm sure it would go to the casting director, and it would be more about, like, ensemble pieces. And it's a way to... look, casting director is... I've said a couple of times on the Oscar season podcast that I think it deserves... an award at the Oscars, because you watch the opening credits of the film and it's the only above the line role that doesn't have a corresponding Oscar. The other big one is stunt work, but it depends on the film, and I think probably stunt choreography or even just choreography as an award would be a good one, because then you get dance as well as stunts, and it's not just people trying to kill themselves for the award. But yeah, casting directors for a long time gone under the radar, and I think it's one of those things that you would award I mean, someone like Sarah Haley Finn, who is the casting director for Marvel, who has plucked so many people out of obscurity and given these huge roles. And I mean, like Robert Downey Jr., Christopher Nolan just this week called it like one of the most consequential casting decisions in the history of Hollywood. And he's right. Like, it's, kicked off this whole movement, and it was also putting a chance on this, former drug addict. But like someone that like when you're adapting something on paper into, and then it's like, oh my god, Robert Downey Jr., J.K. Simmons is the other one, or like Hugh Jackman, that you go, wow, they've adapted that so perfectly. But it's the people that find unknown actors that, that's what a casting director is really for. Like when a film is like child actors as well. And the other thing is that it's kind of a way to award an ensemble award where it's like no one actor really sticks out, but just everyone fits together so well and put in such a good performance. Like, that's great casting to me.
Do you think the Marvel lady was like, when all that stuff happened with the guy who was cast as Kang, she was like, damn it, this is going to lose me the Oscar.
Yeah, she's going to get blacklisted from that award now after busting her ass for 40
This is the
years.
worst piece of casting I've ever seen. How did you not foresee that this guy was? Because I guess that's the thing, right? If you're going to reward her for being like, we brought back Robert Downey Jr., even though he was like real into drugs, then also you have to like, celebrate the negatives where it's like, oh, it turns out I actually picked this guy who maybe potentially beat up his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Potentially.
You have just like backwards walked into, Aaron, what I think will be the big controversy surrounding this Oscar. And 1 year from now,
It might be two. I can't remember if it's coming in the next one or the one after, but
right,
sorry.
Right. Well, whenever it happens, there is going to be a casting director nominated for best casting, and there is going to be a film that has that's an Oscar picture that has someone who's going to get cancelled in it during the awards season, right? And then they're going to have to retroactively be like, well, should this person be nominated for best casting?
And also,
that's totally going to happen.
It sort of heightens the stakes a little bit for the casting people as well, because they're sort of like a little bit
they
anonymous.
They can finally start doing their job.
Do some background research, for God's sake. But, like it's sort of an anonymous art in some ways, but now it sort of puts them at the forefront. So, like...
Absolutely. I think this is going to shine a light on the art of casting in a way that's never been seen before. I think you're going to get similar to the boom in like intimacy coordination. That's like, it's going to be comparable to that, I think, in terms of like,
one's a job actually just being created. Intimacy coordinators didn't exist before 2017.
Well, that's a great point, but both are jobs that are like, no one wants to be them because no one's heard of them until now.
If you can't see it, then you can't be it, which I guess is an important theme in a couple of the movies nominated for Best Picture this year.
That is a fantastic segue.
Aaron!
So,
Aaron!
the films we're talking about today...
You'd think you'd been on every podcast with technique like that.
Who would have thought I would come in this hot, being this, having this much COVID in my body?
Oh my god, I didn't know that. Oh my, are we going to get digitally infected with COVID?
Look, I wouldn't pick up the mic for a couple of days, Richard. That's all I'm saying.
So, the films we're going to be talking about today are Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. And then we will talk about the rest. A few of the ones we haven't talked about yet aren't even available to us in New Zealand yet. But Aaron, we have a fun thing that we do sometimes on a similar sort of structured podcast to this one, where we go through the Christmas films released on Netflix, where the order in which we talk about them, the way we decide that is I count down from 3 to 1, and then we all say the name of our least favorite film of those 5. And then if they're not the same, majority wins, or we decide, and then eventually we talk about them in order from least favorite to favorite.
Sounds good to me.
All right, so out of those 5, I'm going to count 3 to 1, and then on the count of 3, everyone say your least favorite of that bunch.
Okay.
Are we all clear on the rules?
I'm locked in. I'm ready to go.
I'm ready, baby. I'm ready.
All
Let's
right.
go.
3, 2, 1. Maestro.
Poor Things.
Maestro.
Oh.
Whoa!
Well,
Well, fuck you, Aaron. Majority rules.
Oh, it's pretty close to saying Maestro 2, to be fair. So
Yeah, I was going to say, out of curiosity, how high up was Maestro on the ranking for you?
They really were much of a muchness, and I was like, I feel like I disliked Poor Things a little bit more.
All right, well, we'll get to that shortly, perhaps. But, yeah, Maestro. So this is Bradley Cooper's second film. Interestingly, it's the first ever collaboration between Spielberg and Scorsese, because they are both producers on it. Lot of talent involved in this movie. You've got Bradley Cooper, Carey Mulligan plays his love interest in the film. It's a biopic of Leonard Bernstein, the composer. He composed the music for West Side Story, among plenty of other things. And yeah, it was released it's a Netflix film, and Bradley Cooper plays the title role, as well as he wrote it or co-wrote it and directed it. And a lot of flack when the first trailer came out, because he has a giant fake nose, which like softens throughout the film. But in those young, because he's playing him like throughout his entire life, sort of thing. But those young scenes, it's like, damn, is that thing prominent? And obviously, Leonard Bernstein is a Jewish conductor, and it's considered anti-Semitic to put a fake nose on it.
It's also like, I thought it was interesting that Leonard being Jewish is like a fairly prominent component of the film. So it's not even like Bradley Cooper could be like, oh my god, I didn't even think of that. Oh, sorry guys. It's like, no, I Bradley Cooper chose to, as a non-Jewish man, chose to portray a Jewish man by using a prosthetic nose, which I don't think really needed to be.
Yeah, Leonard Bernstein's nose isn't that big.
Isn't that big? Like, it's not big enough for me to be like, oh, well, whoever plays him in a biopic needs a
what are they going to do about
nose.
the nose?
Yeah, no. Can I go first? My thoughts on Maestro.
You may.
As the Maestro of the group, I'm kidding. I'm not. I'm the I'm the poor thing of the group. I have not seen all the Oscar films yet, as we said at the start, but this is the first front runner I've seen this year that I've been like, I do not like this movie. It's the other ones I'm like, maybe they're not my favorite, but I can understand why they're nominated. This is like what someone would cite as an example of Oscar bait 7 years ago, right? Like 7 years ago, we were making fun of this kind of film for being as Oscar baity as it is, right? And my journey with this movie was like, again, heard the controversy, then heard like, oh, Bradley Cooper really wants a nomination this year. He really wants to get an Oscar. And then the nominations came out, and I believe he's not nominated for Best Director.
I'll go through the nominations here. So it's 7 nominations: picture, actor for Bradley Cooper, actress for Carey Mulligan, screenplay, original screenplay, cinematography, makeup and hairstyling, and best sound. Couple of fun facts: Steven Spielberg has extended his lead of the most Best Picture nominations, and Bradley Cooper is the 15th person to direct himself to a Best Actor nomination, and he's also the 5th person to have done so more than once. And he's also...
It is fun.
Him and Wes Anderson, both with this list of nominations this year, have joined the 5-timers club to people that have been nominated in 5 different categories. Because he's got all the same ones that he got. He got, for Star Is Born, it was like actor. He still hasn't got a director nomination, but picture for his producing. Screenplay was adapted for Star Is Born, and it's original for this. And he was song for Star Is Born.
This was an original script, despite it being based on a true
Yeah,
story.
it's that weird thing. It's one of those weird quirks of the Academy rules, where it's like, it's based on Bernstein's life, but he's not adapting a work on.
Yeah, right.
Like if there was a biography about him, and and he'd bought the rights to that biography, that would be adapted. But yeah, it's a weird thing.
So first of all, curious that you can direct your way to a Best Actor nomination, but that does not correspond to a Best Director. Not saying it should, just isn't that interesting. I like this movie has got all the bells and whistles of someone desperate to get nominated for Best Director, I think. And like, I really liked A Star Is Born. I actually thought that showed quite a lot of promise as a director from Bradley Cooper. But this feels like this is what I would expect from the kind of the cultural joke that had developed around this movie. And I went into this thinking, fuck, I bet I'm going to love this. Like, this is the controversial Best Picture nominee. I bet I'm going to just be like struck down by it. 5 minutes in, I was like, whoa, just, it's so like I don't even know if I can put to words the Oscar bait checklist that it ticks off. But like, first of all, let's talk about the makeup that it's nominated for, because I think that was a big thing going in. Is like, he plays him across, from his probably his mid-20s to his elderly, like 70s or 80s, right? Like, and it's the same actor. The makeup's doing a lot of heavy lifting. I'm gonna say it. It's not invisible makeup. You can see it's a man. An old man. It's very good old man makeup. Yeah. It's very good old man makeup, but it is not seamless. It is still, I think it's one of these things that we're going to see in 20 years and be like, ha ha, funny that we thought that was passable in 2024, 2023. It's, just the struggling, pulled himself up by his bootstraps story that divulges into drugs and alcohol and the price of fame and like it doesn't interest. I've read like the most praise I've read this movie gets is like, it's interesting that it like very clearly focuses on his marriage, and that's like the through line is about his marriage to what's her
Carey
name?
Mulligan.
Well, yeah.
His wife's name is Carey Mulligan.
Felicia.
So she's nominated for Best Actress as well. And it's just, I think it's kind of a boring thing to focus on. From what you see on the peripherals of his life,
focus on
I don't
the
know
gay
if I
shit.
care that much about. Yeah, kind of. But also, like,
I want to see more dick.
It's the same thing as Bohemian Rhapsody, right? How they ignored the like cocaine-fueled parties to focus on whatever. Like, what it showed us on the sidelines of his life, I just feel like there may have been a more interesting through line to like devote most of the movie to. And, it's just got another hallmark of Oscar Beatty is just these like very chewing the scenery monologues from everyone involved. I don't think neither he nor Carey Mulligan should be nominated.
Well, there's the scene
like,
where there's like a 6-minute scene of him conducting that he famously trained 6 years for, and it's like there's all these memes now about like Bradley Cooper pushes for new award, most effort for a picture,
most acting.
Yeah. But it's interesting because he said like, there's so much footage of him, and you like having to actually, you can play a character in between the scenes, but his actual conducting is something you have to really learn. But I saw a great tweet that was like Bradley Cooper after like 6 years of training to do this one scene be like, yes, it's almost there, but it won't be complete until I wear a big fake nose like a fucking jackass.
That's so what it is, eh? I don't know. What did you think, Aaron? You liked it more than Poor Things?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all I know of your opinion.
Of my hot take. Yeah, it's interesting because I saw a video of like an actual conductor breaking down that scene and being like, it's all right. There are actually certain parts. There are certain parts of it that are actually like would make it harder to be the orchestra because he's like working against what a conductor is supposed to be doing.
Interesting.
So I don't know.
And do you know what? That would be totally forgivable from a like artistic license point of view if he'd spent a few months getting the basic idea of conducting, which is what he should have done, I think, right? Like, that's probably what he should have done.
Or if you hadn't wandered around being like, I spent 6 years training for this, people are going to be like, all right, well, it better be good, because if it's not, we're going to focus on this one minute detail and rip it apart. We're going to get some guy from the Tisch School of Music to tell you exactly how shit you are as conductor.
Hey, you know who spent more than 6 years learning conducting? Leonard Bernstein, right?
Yeah.
But yes, to talk about what I felt about the movie, I was interested that it was nominated for screenplay because I actually think that's probably the weakest part of the production, to be honest. Like you talked about the fact that, they had these kind of god-awful Oscar bait monologues, and I think, that doesn't come from the acting.
The wave of relief that just hit me that you agree that they're god-awful, Aaron. I thought, as our resident actor, I thought you were going to come in here and be like, AJ, that acting from a technical level, from a craft level, is better than anything you could do, motherfucker.
I mean, that's probably not untrue.
Yeah, so please don't say that.
Please do. I couldn't take it. My ego couldn't take it. No, it's clearly better than anything anyone in this on this podcast could do in terms of acting. But
or anyone listening to it, probably.
Yeah.
You think you're safe at home listening to this? You're fucking not. You're just as untalented as us.
Yeah, exactly. You losers. Don't call your audience losers. I thought there were like aspects of it that I really liked. Like there were certain scenes or like certain shots or like kind of those kinds of decisions that I really enjoyed. But you're right, like overall as a piece of art, it didn't really go anywhere. It sort of did feel a bit Oscar baity. But yeah, I thought there was some interesting choices made, and I thought Carey Mulligan's performance was particularly good. I guess it did feel a bit Oscar baity in the sense of just like even the actors playing the roles and stuff is kind of like, I don't know, it felt a little bit broad. And even just like in the trailer that a little bit trite.
Yeah.
Even in the trailer, that bit
just a touch trite, boys. Am I right?
That would be my note. That would be my director's note. A little trite. Even the like bit in the trailer, because I rewatched the trailer to remind myself, because I saw it maybe like a month or two ago, where he's like, if summer doesn't sing in you, and it's like repeated twice, and it's like, oh man, you put it in the trailer.
This is the stuff you're proudest of.
The thing is, you make his nose a tiny bit bigger, you've got a satirical Tropic Thunder trailer.
Or like it's like The Jerk almost, the Steve Martin film where he's got that gigantic like Pinocchio nose.
Oh my god!
Give him that kind of nose and do a farce. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, mate, no, I'm saying like. In the context of something like Tropic Thunder, you could make fun of the fact that this non-Jewish actor is like being really offensive to try win an Oscar. Yeah. It's a touch away from that already being a sincere attempt at winning an Oscar.
We should say that like Bernstein's estate and family have said they don't have an issue with it, and they think it's, but they don't speak for all Jewish people everywhere, but they I would say my sort of thoughts on the film is that it's a very well-made film. I will give it that. And this is something I've spoken about before on the podcast, but the idea of a film being so bad it's good, it's so camp that you can still enjoy it. This is an example of a film that's so good it's bad. It's like we've just spent the last 10 minutes like faulting stuff about it, but it's like it's all good stuff, but it's just it doesn't. None of it adds up to anything remotely good. Like
100%. Yeah, that's so true. Like all the elements are cool.
And, it's a well-made film. Bradley Cooper, I think, is a talented director, but it's just, and I think it's the fact that, especially like musical biopics, even though this is not your traditional music biopic, but. Yeah, it's like we've just seen these so much before, and we've seen actors try really hard to win Oscars, and it's interesting. Bradley Cooper has a really interesting career.
Yeah, I think this is better than like a lot of biopics we've seen recently.
This is better than Poor Things.
I maintain this is much better than Poor Things. Nah, if you compare this to Bohemian Rhapsody, this is clearly a better movie than Bohemian Rhapsody.
No, sorry, not. Yeah, I'm not going out to bat for Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah,
I think this is to build on what Richard was saying. This is an example of, people say, the whole is better than the sum of its parts, or the sum of its parts is better than the whole. This is, the sum of its parts are great. The whole is worthless to me. It is valueless.
It's just a hole.
Me,
It's like a hole in the ground.
Yeah, the whole is a hole.
Big old donut.
Any final thoughts on Maestro anyone wants to add?
I'm
No,
good.
I think we've summed it up. But I think it is that idea of like not being the sum of the parts, like knots kind of coming together and coalescing and singing, I think is kind of, there's like a couple of movies this year I'd say that kind of fit in that category for me. Which is
Poor
like so
Things being
interesting to
one.
see. Yeah, just keep bringing it back to how much I don't like Poor Things. But you know, like you can see the like elements of it and you're like, yeah, this is good filmmaking or whatever, but ultimately it doesn't really, they don't come together to create this magical thing that like affects you personally, because you know that's like what it's all about at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. So, just before we get to our next film, a couple of below the line things that we can talk about. Best visual effects up for nominations. The Creator, Godzilla -1, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, and Napoleon. Napoleon's an interesting one that, you know, you'd asked me a year ago, 6 months ago even, I would have said, oh, this is going to be a big player at the Oscars, but I don't think it has 3 nominations all up.
Wow.
Is there a likely front runner for visual effects?
I think the underdog and like the story that people are wanting to happen, I don't know if this is necessarily the actual front runner, Godzilla -1.
I think so too.
Because really small crew, the director's just come out recently, the director is a VFX artist, has come out and said about how much work he put into making the VFX team like a comfortable place to work. And I mean, not only, you know, not doing all this crunch time and shit that we hear about coming out of Marvel, but you know, making sure they had like coffee machines and couches and like that it was actually like a nice harmonious office. And I think especially if that were to win this award, not only did they have such a smaller budget compared to any of these films, maybe Napoleon might be on similar wavelength to that, but like such a smaller team, such a smaller budget, and way more comfortable working conditions. Even like in Japan as well, where like, you know, harsh working conditions, especially in those industries, are like
don't get reported.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen Godzilla -1 by any chance, Aaron?
I have not,
It's
but I would be
so
interested to
fucking
know what are the working conditions like for VFX artists? Like
Very bad.
these people turning up to
Famously
like
bad.
no air conditions, just like really hard stools.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just VFX artists. It's like
Animators,
digital animators. Video game companies are particularly bad for it. It's you've heard the term like crunch, I assume.
I don't know, maybe not in this context.
So like it means a crunch. The crunch refers to like people working like absurd amounts of overtime. So people might be like, oh, I don't know, Captain America 3 had massive crunch. So
yeah,
people
it's
worked
like an
way
actual,
overtime.
because it's like an actual term. It's not just like, oh, it's crunch time, we got to do it. It's like you'll hear, oh, they had 3 weeks of crunch, and
Right.
it is like, yeah, we're talking 20-hour days for weeks on end, sort of thing. No days.
Damn,
off.
these poor VFX artists. Why don't they? Where's the union not striking?
They're not allowed to unionize, or there's no union, or something. There's something with the VFX that, like, there was one VFX company that just recently voted to unionize or something, and it was like a big step forward. But unions in VFX and digital media are historically an uphill battle. But yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, the Creator had really, really strong VFX, and another one that had quite a low budget comparatively. So I could see it going to either of those, personally. Yeah. Costume design.
All right.
Got another bunch of... We got Barbie, Kills of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things. Interesting. Yeah, very, very rare that a contemporary set film wins costume design. Barbie's in there, obviously. But
surely Barbie's gonna win. I would think Barbie.
Yeah,
would win.
I could see Poor Things taking it.
Yeah.
True. Okay.
It's sort of about like either it tends to focus on either like historical authenticity or like cool out there avant-garde costumes, which I guess is
Poor
like
Things is both.
Poor Things kind of hits both. Yeah, so it's sort of hard to compete with that. But yeah, I think I was looking at the trailers, like I said before, and I don't know, I was really struck by how magical and enjoyable the costuming was in Barbie. And it's like an important element of the film and also of like the Barbie thing. You know, like, what clothes is she wearing? Did you sew Barbie a jacket when you were a child? I did not, but my brother did. You know, that sort of thing.
Well. All right, so now on the count of three, once again, we will reveal our fourth. I mean, Aaron, I'm guessing yours will be Poor Things again, but taking Maestro out of the running, what is your least favorite?
What's the worst one
of the remaining films?
Okay.
I actually need to think.
Oh!
Okay.
The Maestro himself.
Okay. Let's go.
Poor Thing.
3, 2, 1. Poor Things.
Oppenheimer. Damn. I've been Oppenheimered out of the vote.
You're real keen in this vote.
Hey,
so yeah, there's a few here that I think are sitting on similar thing for me, but I thought I'd throw Aaron a bone and agree with him for Poor Things. I didn't love it as much as a lot of people that I'm hearing. This one might have been a little bit overhyped for me, I think. I went into it expecting a life-changing experience, this like flawless avant-garde masterpiece. And the first thing that struck me, and call me a dumb little idiot boy if you will, but the get ready. The film took too long to get started for me. It's about 40 minutes, almost an hour before the plot really kicks into motion. And it to be fair, it is very clearly like an Act 1 situation and then Act 2. But it had that effect of like, well, by the time we're actually going on our adventure, I've kind of given up a little bit. And then contrast that with the end of the film, and 10 minutes before the end, we're introduced to a villain, and then it's immediately resolved. And so, yeah, the biggest thing that struck me about the film was the pacing was all over the place. And with all films like this, especially, you know, a director like Yorgos Lanthimos, is that I have to preface any criticism by saying, I get the film. I understand the film. It's not a case of I'm like... okay, you call my attention span too short or whatever, but it's like, it's not the film is too smart for me, okay? I just want to make that clear. I'm not a stupid little boy, okay?
Aaron shaking his head, you're like, yeah, you were same. I understood it as well.
Definitely. I got it. No, but that's the thing, It's like, it has the vibe of like, I'm a really smart film. Do you know how smart I am? I'm really an intelligent piece of filmmaking. And it's like, yeah, I get it. It's just like coming on a little strong, Poor Things. Take me to dinner first before you ram down intellectual ideas.
Well, see, that was the thing. Like, I got bored of the first hour of dinner. I was like, take me home and fuck me.
I like that your complaint essentially about Poor Things seems to somehow be it didn't get to the sex fast enough, which is like the prevailing thing I remember from that film was, I did not know going into it how like regularly you would be seeing sex and nudity in the film. Not that this guy's complaining, am I right, lads? But like more like I just did not know how full on it was. A couple of days later, my flatmate was like, "Should I go to Poor Things with my parents?" And I was like, "I wouldn't. I wouldn't go with anyone's parents to this movie." I liked it seemingly more than you guys did. I think it's definitely something that. The more I've thought about it, the more I've liked it. Like, coming out of it, I was like, is Emma Stone really, like, in contention for Best Actress with that? And then the more I thought about it, it's like, well, she does, like, really authentically depict someone who's essentially a baby becoming, like, a fully formed person with their own agency and beliefs and wants. And I felt like that was very organic, so I guess that is... in a sort of a Forrest Gump kind of way is pretty good acting, right? Like that it takes you across someone's life journey very in a sort of a truncated way. Obviously the visuals are super interesting, super unique. I think that's the first thing that probably jumped out to anyone about it. I thought Mark Ruffalo was great. I'm
Playing
glad
against
that
type.
he got nominated.
This
for
is the second most
supporting
nominated
actor.
film of the bunch as well, with 11 nominations.
There you go. I agree, Richard, with your note about the villain showing up 10 minutes before the end. And I'm really like, I would have, if you'd paused the movie at that point or a point around it, I think I would have bet money on an ending that didn't end up happening, which is the whole last act is about how God, Willem Dafoe's character, is dying. And we know that this is a scientist that knows how to transfer brains into another healthy body. You've got a disposable villain you want to kill off. I was like, oh, they'll defeat the bad guy and put Willem Dafoe's dying brain, or his alive brain, in this handsome man's dying body, because the whole thing is that Willem Dafoe is so horribly disfigured and ugly that he's never been shown any compassion or love his whole life. And I don't really know if that character deserved a happy ending, but the movie seemed to be implying he did. So I was like, that's the direction they're going with it. And the bad guy gets turned into a goat.
The goat gets turned into the bad guy.
Yeah. So he's got a goat brain. And all I could think when that was... So the final scene of the movie is they're like having a tea party in this mansion they have now, and the bad guy's now got the brain of a goat. And all I could think was, man, it would be much more satisfying to see Mark Ruffalo's character become the goat.
In this situation, yeah.
Like, and like he spent the whole movie just being a brilliantly acted but like pathetic villain of a man, right? Like he was the character who I think I would have rather have seen step it up a notch to take the place of this random villain we bring in late. I think I was more invested in seeing that character get his comeuppance than anything which maybe made a bit more sense logically, which is, I think, what it went with. It is based on a novel, though. I wonder if it is sort of blinded by the story possibilities by how the novel plays out, potentially.
I do just want to point out, you said something at the start of your bit there. I didn't want to just get to the sex, okay? I
enjoyed the sex the correct amount that a person is supposed to enjoy sex scenes in a movie.
Yeah. Which is a lot.
Yeah!
Love me some sex scenes. Love me some
I can tell.
female masturbation scenes. Always good. One thing I would point out is that, like, clearly the movie is kind of like an allegory, right? Or kind of like clearly a sort of metaphor type story about, you know, like misogyny and, you know, female empowerment through sex.
Fetishization of, like...
If I may, I've described it to people as what if a woman knew nothing about societal standards and was plopped into the real world, how she, just through not being offended by things, she would dismantle these sacred cows that we, you know, like she finds out about like sex work, and instead of being like, oh, I don't know if I could do that, she goes, oh, right, and you make money
because I like
it
sex and I would need money.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so that's sort of what I think it is it's like exploring how ridiculous some of our societal standards are by saying, what if a baby was an adult's body?
What if a baby was a sex worker?
Ask yourself this: what if a baby?
See, it would be fine, right?
Best picture,
best performance. Yeah, but if you take all that into account, like, and I was talking to my girlfriend about this because we went and saw it together. It's like essentially a film that kind of attacks. Yeah, and we both love the sex scenes. No, it's like a film that kind of says, like, you know, misogyny is bad or whatever, but it's like entirely a male creative cast, and there's something about it that, like, because people talked about how kind of icky it is to think about a baby, like essentially a baby like masturbating, which is kind of what happens in the film, and like it's even more kind of gross to think that like it's a male guy thinking about a female baby, and then like a male
it does
kind
feel
of
strange that this is not a female directed film, doesn't it?
yeah, I think it's quite uncomfortable, which I think is why the like kind of feminism of the film feels ultimately kind of empty, because one, it doesn't make any points that are kind of like new or interesting, and two, it's like done by a man, so it's like a man's version of feminism. So you see the like hot chick masturbating stuff, but none of the like kind of you know the things that maybe we find a little gross, like periods or whatever. You know?
Yeah, or periods.
Or like periods. Where are the periods? That's what I'm saying. Where are the periods?
It's interesting. Someone in our Discord the other day, and I'm sure this wasn't an original, like this might have just been all over Twitter and I haven't seen it yet, but there was talk about like a Barbie sequel, and they said, we already have a sequel to Barbie, it's called Poor Things. And that blew my mind, that it's like you have this person who's, you know, Barbie ends with like this woman in like, you know, a very traditionally gorgeous woman's body who is completely naive to anything that happens in the real world, is now thrust into the real world. And that's the plot of Poor Things. And I was
that's
like,
exactly what I thought when I saw it. I was like, this is the same as Barbie, except like, honestly, less good and too intellectual.
Yeah. So shout out to Dr. Barrel who's made that point. It blew my mind.
And both these things, both these films provide feminist messages that afterwards, as a, you know, a feminist, granted a male feminist, but a feminist nonetheless, my reaction was, yeah, I know.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like,
women, right?
Neither movie taught me something I didn't already like know or believe about like feminist thought, I guess.
Which like,
or maybe they tried to and I didn't listen. Man,
too busy thinking about the sex scenes, mate. But also like, which is why I think Barbie is more interesting and more creditable, because like at least it's commercially appealing, and probably like the message like, although simplistic, is kind of like more important for the, you know, the sorts of people who are going to go and see this movie, whereas like these people are not going to go and see Poor Things. The only people watching Poor Things, though, you reckon?
I think this I couldn't explain to you why, and in a vacuum I'd go, yes, of course Barbie is a more marketable film than Poor Things. I feel like the marketing for Poor Things in Christchurch, New Zealand, at least, which is not the most like liberal town, has been like
it's probably one of the least liberal towns.
Yeah. But like posters for Poor Things are all over the place. Like it's everywhere.
I think though, even still, I mean, you know, apart from anything else, Poor Things is an R18 film. It's like a very explicit, which immediately makes it less accessible. To especially, you know, we're talking about people at that core age that need to learn these messages. Whereas, you know, Barbie is, there was a Barbie bus, for God's sake.
Where was the Poor Things bus?
So a couple more awards we can take a look at that have been given out. Best Film Editing: Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Kills the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things. This is, I think this is one of those key awards. We've said this before, but like those key awards on the night that like if a film wins editing, it's probably going to go on to win Best Picture. And yeah, I think, you know, this is one that like if Oppenheimer takes out, it's probably Oppenheimer's film to lose. Best Picture.
I agree.
But yeah, it's this year's an interesting one because there's no obvious editing film. You know, normally there's like a war film or like a racing film or something that is like you watch and you go, yeah, fuck yeah, that had a lot of editing in it. And yeah, whereas this one is just, these are all just well edited films. They're all paced well. They're all, I mean, except Poor Things. And they just flow nicely and see there's sort of invisible editing that. Yeah.
I was a guest star on the Letterboxd podcast a couple of months back, where they wanted to talk to me about editing, and they asked me like you know, there's that old chestnut that like what even is good editing? How do you award good editing? Because good editing should be invisible. And I described it to them as the galaxy brain meme, where it's like the tiny brain is good editing is showy and flashy and Edgar Wright-esque kind of editing, right? No. The bigger brain is good editing is invisible. Good editing is you don't even realize it's happening. And then the expanded brain is good editing is whatever fits the director's vision for the film, right? Because something like Everything Everywhere All at Once, which won editing and won Best Picture, is a film that is told through its editing more than any, like specifically, like that is such a showy edited film. But that's because it fits the vision.
Well, I would also say that like you used Edgar Wright as an example of like bad editing.
Not bad editing, just
showy editing. But I think that especially something like Baby Driver, it's like that is a film he set out to tell with its editing.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so out of these, what are the nominees again?
Anatomy of a Fall, Holdovers, Kills the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things.
Well, I haven't seen Holdovers or
Anatomy of a Fall.
Anatomy of a Fall yet, but I will say that Oppenheimer feels like it is the closest to the like big boy edit of the bunch this year. Like it's a film that like does a lot with it. I mean, this is more sound design stuff, but like that is a category of editing. But it's told non-linearly, and and not only is it two separate timelines, but there's flashbacks within those timelines themselves, and that is all somehow crystal clear if you're paying attention, whereas you might, in a less well edited film, you might not be able, you might get confused by what timelines what.
Yeah. So AJ, the editor, is giving that one to Oppenheimer. Cinematography, we got Poor Things, Oppenheimer, Maestro, Kills the Flower Moon, and then a film called El Conde, which
I mean, El Conde looks great. I wouldn't be, from what I've seen of it, I think it looks good. But
yeah.
What's front runner here?
Do you want me to pull up the actual like stats?
I just assume you care about the front runners as much as I do, so that you'd have them memorized by now.
I mean,
I want the odds. God damn it! I want the odds so I can start making these bets. That's what this podcast is all about. We need to transition to becoming a betting podcast so we can attract the betting dollar money.
I would just say that it's like in any technical award, you can probably assume Oppenheimer's the front runner.
Yeah, right.
And I think it is. Yeah, it is the front runner for this.
Wow.
Yeah, interesting.
Good old Hoyt van Hoytema, eh?
It's.
And how?
So, all right. Count of three. Next least favorite film. So now we're taking Poor Things out. We're taking Maestro out. So you've got left to choose from.
And the other five we're not covering on this episode, which means that we have not designated the worst film yet. We've just said the one out of the five.
I want to make that very clear. All right. So
I'm just saying I might hate the Holdovers more than Maestro. I don't know.
I doubt it.
You absolutely won't.
But so we've got Kills the Flower Moon, Barbie, and Oppenheimer left to discuss. So 3, 2, 1. Kills the Flower Moon.
Uh-oh. Now we can't talk about any of them.
Well, you said Oppenheimer as well, didn't you, Aaron?
No,
I said Barbie.
Oh, nice. Okay, well.
But I'm happy to go. Whoa, wait. Who said what? You said Oppenheimer,
AJ? Flower Moon. I was trying to be different. I didn't want to be accused of being sexist, but I probably would have said Barbie. But I'm not a sexist like Aaron.
I'm happy to go with you on Killers of the Flower Moon if you want. If you want to do that next.
Damn. Guess my next answer is going to be Oppenheimer as well.
No, let's do Barbie. I think it's a good follow-on from Poor Things. But so Barbie nominated for 8 awards, and this is we talk about famously snubbed film. It's Greta Gerwig was not nominated for Best Director, Margot Robbie was not nominated for Best Actress, and Ryan Gosling was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, and also America Ferrera was nominated for Best Supporting Actress, but we'll come to all that in a second. a lot of people have
Richard and
come
I
out.
have already talked about this movie on two. Actually, Richard's talked about it on 3 separate podcasts already. So.
But I just want to talk about this whole snub thing because a bunch of people have come out and said like Simu Liu and Ryan Gosling have all said like there's no film without those two, so like they were absolutely snubbed. Whoopi Goldberg, who's an EGOT winner, so like it's not just like why is Whoopi Goldberg commenting on this, has said not everyone gets a prize, it's subjective. Movies you love might not be nominated. Like, yeah, sorry. Michelle Yeoh said there's not enough nominations to go around. It's so competitive. There's no guarantee you get a nomination. So
the people who have been directly rewarded by the Academy in the past are saying, it's not their fault.
The system's fair. That's why I got an Oscar.
Margot Robbie has broken her silence just recently and said there's no way to feel sad when you're this blessed. Obviously, I think Greta should be nominated as director because what she did is once in a career, once in a lifetime thing. What she pulled off, it really is. It's been an incredible year for all the films. People's reactions to the movie have been the biggest reward of this entire experience. I've never been a part of something like this. Not like this. I've done comic book stuff and that gets a big reaction, but this felt different. It still feels very different. And I can't think of a time when a movie's had this effect on culture, and it's amazing to be the eye of the storm. And I think that's the thing, is that like also, a lot of people I saw immediately on Twitter, on TikTok and stuff, people being like, Margot Robbie deserves a nomination. Like, she put so much work into getting this film made. Like, the amount of effort she put in and, like, she managed to pull off this thing. It's like, yeah, she is nominated for an Oscar for doing that. She's a producer on the film, which is arguably her bigger contribution to the film, in a way. And I think the Greta Gerwig quote-unquote snub is a different thing, because I also saw a lot of people being like, oh, this movie about feminism, and they nominated the guy. It's like, they didn't choose Ryan Gosling over Margot Robbie. They weren't nominated in the same category. But I have loved seeing that everyone, like even the people crying out snub and how what a travesty this is, aren't being like, well, we got America Ferrera, because even they are like, I don't get it either. Like that was
it's the opposite of a snub.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest surprise of the
whole
of the
best
nations.
supporting actress category, I think, is a bit of a wash this year, or at least I feel like I could fill out those 5 slots with.
You reckon you could do better than all of them? I rection I could fill those 5 slots.
The best supporting actress.
It's interesting because to say best actress, especially with the best actress conversation, I haven't seen Naiad. I also haven't seen a lot of discussion about Naiad. Presumably that's the one you lift, but like both director and actress are two that are like pretty tight races, and to say this, they should have been nominated, and like, believe this if you want, but you need to be able to confidently say not just she was one of the best actresses or best directors of the year. You need to be able to say better than one of these. And I think that when the nominations came out, a lot of people, there was a subtle kind of like, why, I haven't heard of Anatomy of a Fall, so that shouldn't have been nominated. But it's like Sandra Hüller in Anatomy of a Fall, who also stars in Zone of Interest, and Justin Triet, who's the director of Anatomy of a Fall, it's like they 100% deserve to be there. And I'm sorry, more than Margot Robbie and Greta Gerwig in my mind as well. Like, if I would put both of them above. The only one I haven't seen Zone of Interest, but that and Naiad are the only two in those categories that I haven't seen. And I wouldn't necessarily be willing to lift any of the other nominations out to replace with either of them.
I think, though, the argument that you were saying before about the fact that like they didn't give it to like the feminist or whatever is kind of true, because like they put Yorgos Lanthimos as best director for like essentially what is like art house Barbie.
Yeah.
So in some respects they kind of did lift the man above the woman in terms of like telling a feminist tale, which I think is kind of pretty awkward to think about. And also like when I was thinking about it, I was like, surely Barbie is like so much more like culturally important and kind of interesting that you would say that like the director is so influential on that thing, like the production and stuff, that like it should be nominated. But maybe I'm wrong, because apparently in Christchurch, New Zealand, maybe Poor Things is much more of a cultural phenomenon.
That's not to say anything about the Barbie marketing that also happened.
Yeah, there's a Barbie bus for God's sake.
There's a Barbie bus for God's sake.
I don't know. It's just one of those things that it's like, feeling that sad. I don't know. I can't feel that sad for multi-millionaires about their billion-dollar movie with like 8 nominations.
I get what you're saying, and look, if anyone was quick to draw when the nominations were announced, it was little old AJ over here who took to his keyboard and immediately typed up some strong thoughts. But I wanted, and not long after, there was this like bounce back where people essentially saying what you said, Richard, that like, well, you know, there are problematic elements in thinking that these two were snubbed and not saying anything about America Ferrera or etc.
And also
like
Lily Gladstone, being the first.
And Lily I want to make something clear, and how I'm different from the people being problematic. I actually don't have a problem with Margot Robbie not being nominated for Best Actress. I actually didn't think she was going to. I don't know if I even thought she was in the conversation. If you're talking about acting in the Barbie movie, you're talking about Ryan Gosling, which is not to say that it's not a feminist film. It's just the tools and the assets that make up this feminist film use the dipshit male character as a source of comedy, and a lot more of the like more interesting acting moments happen to come from there. It happened with Adam Driver getting nominated for Black Klansman when he's like the one white guy in the film. like it's like, yeah, but they contribute to the message that you are supporting still. My problem with Greta Gerwig not getting nominated for Best Director is far less like, here's what I do to solve it, and more like, here goes the Academy again. That it's like, you know, people were like, oh, would you replace Justine Triet with Greta Gerwig then? Because she's also This happened to me in the Discord. Ha! AJ, the anatomy of a full director, also female. You just assumed male because her name looks vaguely like Justin, didn't you? And it's like,
yeah,
okay.
I did.
I did.
Then I looked at that,
and
like,
I saw the E, and I
year.
saw that it was Justine. And
Oh, Justine! No, it's like, okay, well, my problem is more that like we're celebrating one woman getting into the 5 director slots, and I would go further and say I think that maybe what if it was all women? Like, you know, like this is the it seems so absurd to the
like,
other side.
I actually don't think
like,
Greta Gerwig got snubbed. I think women everywhere got snubbed.
Women everywhere got snubbed, and like I will also say, for the fucking cultural phenomenon that Barbie was this year, to not, as Aaron said, to not nominate the director for that feels like one of these things where the Oscars are being like, why does nobody like us anymore? And it's like, because you didn't reward the director of like the biggest popcorn film of the year, biggest cultural phenomenon of probably the last couple of years even.
Yeah, I just like looking at I haven't seen Zone of Interest, but I know Jonathan Glazer is a great director, and it's like I even with my hang-ups about Poor Things, Yorgos Lanthimos is such an idiosyncratic director that if he can make a film work with that like clear and almost like alienating of a style and still have this movie that people love, I gotta reward that.
I'm gonna be controversial here. I would have lifted Marty for Greta, I think.
Well, I guess you just hate Native Americans.
Thank God
he's
I'm
a
not
feminist,
but
he's also
colonial.
a racist.
Martin Scorsese is a white man. Like, we're not. Like, I'm safe here. I checked my boundaries, and I'm safe to say that actually. But like I'm not in charge of these decisions, right? I'm not part of the Academy, so I know it might sound like lunacy to say that I don't think Martin Scorsese should have been nominated for Best Director because he's supposedly a shoo-in for 2 out of every 3 films he makes. He's a shoo-in for Best Director. But like, if I'm saying which direction, like the craft of directing, did I enjoy more, I much preferred Gerwig over Scorsese in this case. But who cares what I think? I
Yeah.
rewatched Barbie the other day so that I would have a fresh perspective I didn't already have, having talked about it so much already on the podcast. And I do not have a fresh... It's like about as good as I remember it being. I have the same problems with the weird third act that I've already spoken about. I still... Again, to reiterate, I love the idea of like teaching the follies of the patriarchy through saying, what if it was the opposite? And basically leading the audience and, in the best case scenario, ignorant male audience members down the garden path of being like, this society where women control everything and the men are subjugated is horrible. And then the film goes, yeah, it is. Now think about what your world looks like. I think that's a brilliant technique and like some really like, just a really interesting
Yeah, I would say
direction
that
to
it's
take
like, again, the like, well, what if the genders were reversed is like baby's first comparison, exposing
and that's what this movie is.
Yeah,
though.
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Right?
And I'm not saying that as a criticism. It's that if you want to tell a like truly feminist film, or like any film with like, and I hate using this word, but like any film with that much of an agenda where you are actually trying to get a point across, because you compare it with like big blockbusters like Marvel films and stuff like that, like call them woke, whatever, but they're not actually trying to educate you or make you a better person at the end of it. But
It's lip service.
to have a film with a message that you truly want people to take home and still be like a 4-quadrant film that appeals to as big an audience as possible, you do kind of have to do the square one. What if the genders were reversed?
Totally.
Yeah, and so I'm not saying there's a criticism. It's like that's how you reach the biggest audience.
Well, and hopefully the people who were moved by that message will go on to learn even more things about equality. And
They can go and watch Poor Things and watch an art house version of it.
But yeah, like Aaron, yeah, I mean, AJ and I have talked to death about Barbie on other episodes of this podcast, but yeah, any sort of major thoughts, feelings you have about the actual film?
Yeah, I think, I thought it was really fun, a really fun romp, very funny, some hilarious things. And I think it's interesting that you kind of talk about the fact that it's kind of reversed, or like the kind of ideas of like gender reversal and things like that, because I think like it actually operates the best when it's like lampooning misogyny and like male culture. Like I think those are the best elements of the Barbie movie, is like, making men look absolutely ridiculous. And I think those are like the most successful moments of it, like getting across his message, because one, it's like fun for the audience, and two, it's like, oh, these people are dumb, this whole thing is dumb. Whereas like you kind of contrast that with the America Ferrera monologue moment, which again, like talking about Oscar monologues, this is a pretty clear example, and it's just so bad and so like, yeah, cool. It's like, have you ever seen in South Park, there's like a teacher character in South Park who's like, okay.
Yeah, Mr.
And he
Mackey.
like, yeah, Mr. Mackey, he does like the drug talk to kids, and he's like, drugs bad, okay.
Yeah.
It's like that whole scene was just like, it's hard to be a
Misogyny's
woman,
bad.
okay. Misogyny's bad, okay.
Yeah.
Which is like it absolutely is, but also I guess it's like that tension between like, yeah, I know. Of course I know all these things. It's like being on the internet for 10 years, but then also
You've
like...
only been on the internet for 10 years, Aaron. Goodness me. Late bloomer.
Well,
Yeah. Mum would
I
not
got-
have it until I was 20.
Until I was
How old are
21.
you?
I was 21, yeah. Finally allowed to be on the internet. That's how it works,
And then you
right?
discovered,
Yeah,
fuck,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
hard to be a woman.
Man, apparently it's hard to be
Yeah,
a
the
woman.
first 21
Why
years
the
of my
mum
life,
kept
I've
me
been
off the
treating them
internet?
like shit.
Yeah, I don't know why Mum kept me off the internet. I would have been much nicer to her.
Yeah, the only man in history to become more of a feminist after that.
More open-minded, less weird.
Oh,
Yeah, I thought it was a great movie. I think, the difficulty with a role like Barbie, and probably why she was not nominated, was because it's like such a kind of straight man role. It's like nothing that's particularly like interesting or memorable. And like she is also the kind of like the the moral center of the world as well. So she's kind of like the person who's responsible for the message, which is like, I don't know, it makes it hard to kind of connect with a character when they're so kind of obviously the vessel through which like a message is being delivered. And that's why kind of like the fun characters are more memorable or more, you know, like the performances are more interesting. Like even in Poor Things, and I guess it sounds kind of, maybe it sounds a little bit misogynistic, but some of the like peripheral male characters were like more memorable and kind of funny because they're not tasked with this thing of like holding the movie together. They can just like provide these kind of broad brush strokes.
Barbie and Bella need to be at least some semblance of an audience surrogate in their own films, whereas
yeah, exactly, which is like a hard thing to be interesting with sometimes, I think. Which is like I guess, you know, it's the task, but also the kind of challenge of being in a role like that, and then also, you know, making that an Oscar-worthy role.
Yeah. I will say about Barbie that it's that I can think of or remember, it's probably the funniest Best Picture nominee I can think of.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Yeah,
it's so funny. The scene where they're like playing guitar, being like, I want to push you around. Like the most incredibly astute observation of men and male culture I've seen in a very long time, mate.
Alrighty, so yeah, just to take you guys through a couple more awards here. Let's go to one of the big ones, which is Best Animated Feature. So we've got nominated The Boy and the Heron, Elemental, Nimona, Robot Dreams, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. For me, this category has the biggest snub of the ceremony, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, which I'm on the record as not being a fan of TMNT. That film is so fucking good.
I still need to see it. I missed it.
It's so good. The animation is gorgeous. I haven't seen Nimona or Robot Dreams, but I've heard really good things about Nimona. I haven't heard that much about Robot Dreams, but it's like
I'm the opposite. I've heard good things about Robot Dreams and like nothing about Nimona.
Yeah, Nimona was like a Netflix film that was abandoned by a different. It was a Blue Sky studio.
So I do know. Okay, I guess I lied. I know enough about Nimona to know what it was. I more meant like reviews from it and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I just like one of those songs that it was more like it flew under the radar a lot of people, but it's really good. And then yeah, Robot Dreams. I was playing at the film festival here, but I didn't get around to it, and it's supposed to be quite good.
Like TV quality animation.
Yeah, it's very like Flash.
Isn't that interesting?
Animation, but yeah, no dialogue in it. But yeah, it's just like it's a very strong category this year. But it's just a shame that a film like TMNT, which in any other year would be the best film of the year by best animated film by a wide margin. But yeah, this one is a toss up between Across the Spider-Verse and The Boy and the Heron. I would probably give the edge to The Boy and the Heron at this point. But you know,
makes sense
Miyazaki,
given it's probably his last movie, right?
He's already working on another one.
Yeah. Oh my god!
Yeah,
good Lord.
He just
back
like
into it.
Workaholic. Well, it's that Japanese work ethic, you know.
I think
the studios.
That genuinely though, like what Spider-Verse does with animation is so much more impressive than what The Boy and the Heron does, which is just like another top-notch job from Studio Ghibli. Like, whereas Spider-Verse is like pushing, even more so than from the first one, is pushing like the boundaries.
Pushing
like,
the medium forward.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was so interesting in Spider-Verse, another movie I rewatched so that I could talk about it properly, which is going to be a theme for this cheat sheet series, I think. Which I guess to any other podcast, that's just, do your fucking work. It's like, no, I actually don't rewatch movies that often these days. But you know, like there are like in Gwen Stacy's universe, how like
the watercolor.
Every shot has got like a different base color behind it, and it looks way more like just experimental and abstract.
Yeah, you know what? I saw it 2 nights ago.
Oh wow! Did you love it?
It was so good. It was great. It was a lot of fun. Just like the one thing that struck me immediately was that the sound mixing is like the music level was like super
Aaron,
high, and then the
do not
dialogue
get me
level was
started.
like very low. So we were literally like changing the volume all the time to be like, I really hope we're not pissing off our neighbors with like the loudness. But then they'd start talking, you'd have to be like, oh, I can't hear anything.
Dude, oh my god, I'm so glad you brought this up. Sorry to derail the podcast and talk about Spider-Verse again. I saw this in the cinema, and as it started with Gwen Stacy's like monologue, it was so fucking quiet that you could hear people like eating their popcorn louder. The whole movie felt like it was playing on like a 9 volume. I had to rewatch the film with subtitles when it came out on Netflix or whatever, because I was like, I feel like I really liked Across the Spider-Verse, but I couldn't understand like
dialogue was just
80%
horrifically
of the
racist.
Dialogue. And it really like impacted my experience watching it for the first time. And I think even though I rewatched it, I still feel now like I had the like pure experience taken from me of watching Across the Spider-Verse. Like it feels very hard to me to judge it fairly now, because I feel like the first time I saw it was like so annoying.
Yeah, which is interesting because it's like when you think about best animated film, are you talking about like the animation is the best?
Great question.
Or is this the best film that is animated? Because like you'd have to dock at some points of like, it was real hard to hear at some points. Great movie, but hard to hear at some points.
It's one that they put out a new sound mix like a week later into cinemas because people could. It wasn't an issue at my screening, I should say. But I read about a bunch of people having issues with it.
Yeah, Rich is like, I'm not saying it didn't happen to you guys, just that it didn't happen to me. Anyway, I thought Barbie was too mean to men.
So,
hey, just quickly, have you guys seen the documentary on Hayao Miyazaki? It's like a 4-part documentary about him making
Ponyo, I think, or Wind Rises.
Yeah, that's the one.
It's a Kingdom of Dreams and Madness or something it's called.
Yeah. You can watch it for free on NHK, and you can also watch sumo wrestling for free on NHK, as I found out.
Say no more.
But yeah, very interesting. Very hard guy to work with, I imagine.
Yeah.
Really a testament to how difficult it must be to work in the Japanese VFX community.
Yeah.
If he's anything to go by.
Yeah. Well,
I saw a meme the other day that was like, when you're a terrible person, but you make a film that makes people feel good, so everyone celebrates you. And just like a picture of Miyazaki surrounded by all his characters.
Yeah, it's funny. There's like the famous... there's a bunch of memes about like the man versus the art, and it's like Miyazaki being like this dark, horrible, tortured soul and makes like these beautiful, bright, happy worlds. And then on the contrast, there's like a Junji Ito who's makes like the most like morbid, like graphic, dark, and then like all the photos of him are like doing like cat paws with cat ears and shit like that. And it's just like the most happy-go-lucky man, and makes like, he made Uzumaki, if you know what that is. With like all these just like dark stuff. But 2 films left to talk about: Kills the Flower Moon and Oppenheimer. Once again, we haven't seen 5 of these films, and we're removing the 3 we've already talked about. So on the count of 3, we're going to say our least favorite out of Oppenheimer and Kills the Flower Moon. I think I know what AJ's is going to be.
Maybe I'll surprise you.
3, 2, 1. Kills the Flower Moon.
You guys fucking love Oppenheimer too much, man. This is silly. No, I guess you and the rest of the
you don't
the way things are
fucking come at us like
don't fucking come.
Do you come on this podcast?
So
that just makes me want to come on this podcast more.
Kills the Flower Moon, 3rd most nominated film with 10 nominations. We can go through what those nominations are if you'd like. Where are we?
Yes!
So,
please do it. We need it.
Picture, director, actress for Lily Gladstone, supporting actor for De Niro, cinematography, editing, production design, costume design, original score, and original song.
So funny that no one is going like, oh, they snubbed Leo DiCaprio. Like this year's court of public opinion only had room for like Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie in terms of their outrage.
Yeah.
Whereas Leonardo DiCaprio, who used to be the king of the snub club,
He's got an Oscar now. Who gives a
yeah,
shit?
exactly.
Yeah.
People don't give a shit anymore.
It could happen to you, Bradley Cooper. People won't care about your prosthetic nose and your ears. Just relish it. Just enjoy it while you can, man.
I was thinking while watching Maestro, man, Star is Born was so good, and that trailer, how good was that trailer? And then it got me thinking about like Bradley Cooper movies with real good trailers. See the trailer for American Sniper? That was so good. American Sniper has a great trailer. I actually quite like the movie, but it's a great trailer.
Okay, Richard. I don't know why we're talking about this.
Because
this
my
is an
podcast.
incredible tangent.
So, yeah, Kills the Flower Moon, based on a true story. This had a lot of flack when it was sort of announced that, as you pointed out earlier, AJ, Martin Scorsese is a white man. And, yeah, telling the story of the Osage murders, a very native indigenous story. And is he the person to tell it? But it's interesting that, like, since the movie has come out, I haven't really seen a lot of that dialogue. Interestingly, I don't know if you guys have, or if it's just something I haven't been seeing.
A bit here and there. I've seen the odd tweet. I think
it's certainly not as much as when it was announced. I think once people actually see the film, yeah.
Well, it's because it's like, yeah, the white man is focusing on the depraved white men in the story. It's like, that's where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to have seen opinions about it because obviously I've only been using the internet for 10 years. So
you're still catching up
difficult
on like the takes about the artist.
Exactly.
And this movie was in fact announced 11 years ago.
I've actually just been catching up on the internet. Been reading everything I can since it was
I see
first
this
created.
gif of this dancing baby. Shit's hilarious.
I'm up to 2007 at this point.
Nice evolution of dance video.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, true.
Cats must be huge at the moment.
They are.
Can I has cheeseburger?
So, yeah, Kills the Flower Moon. This is, I felt a similar way about The Irishman, Scorsese's last film. It's similar length as well. He said that his next film was like a 90-minute film about Jesus. So, hooray for us with short attention spans. But the...
And a heart for the Lord.
But he... Yeah, like I mean, with The Irishman, it was like I enjoyed it. It was the kind of film that you sort of just let wash over you a bit, and I didn't feel like I had to like pay close attention to the whole thing. But then the final scene of that film, with Robert De Niro being left alone in his retirement home and scared of an ajar door, is like, oh god, the whole movie makes sense now. I get it. Like it's such a perfect note at the end of that film, and then. I had the same thing with Kills the Flower Moon, and on paper it's kind of a weird ending. And like to describe it, it's that it flashes to in sort of undetermined time in the future, and there's now a radio play being performed about the movie you've just seen. Randomly, one of the actors is Jack White from The White Stripes, which was completely threw me when I first saw the movie, and then I barely saw people talk about. But then Martin Scorsese himself comes out and delivers the final lines of the film to the camera, saying, that Lily Gladstone's character, Molly Burkhart, passed away years later. Her obituary made no mention of the murders. And I was like, damn. I guess I really just needed a white man to spell it out to me to be like, damn, they had it rough. But yeah, I don't know. It was like a perfect little button on the film. And I think Scorsese is actually a pretty decent actor. I mean, he's popped up every now and then in his films, but, and in Shark Tale, of course. But yeah, it's that was like this stage of his career. It's like, this film's getting pretty long, but boy, does he know how to drive him home.
Yeah, I reckon the thing that I enjoyed most about the film broadly would probably be the performances, or at least the the way that like I enjoyed watching the characters more than I necessarily was enjoying the plot of the movie. I was a little bummed out having not really knowing much about the like who Ernest Burkhart was going in. Like I knew about the Osage. I'd heard about the Osage murders when the film was announced, and I thought it was so fascinating and such an interesting, cool like story to make a movie about.
Yeah, it's cool, eh?
Wow, I was actually very careful with my words, Richard, and said cool story. And then to find out that, like, very early on, no, Ernest Burkhart is, like, complicit in the worst way in the film. I was like, I thought he was, like, a sympathetic character in this. I was all ready for that.
I think that's what Scorsese does really well, though, is that it's like, oh, like, look at this guy, he's the main character, come on. And then it's like, no, like, it's saying something, and this is like, especially Wolf of Wall Street was really big on this, is that it's like, exposing the worst parts of the audience by making them sympathize with, or not necessarily like sympathize, but like, connect with these characters. And then, you know, that's the final shot, because again, it's a great button on a Scorsese film, but like the final shot of Wolf of Wall Street being the audience captivated by every word that he has to say, and it's like, this is you're the audience watching this. I have just taken you along for this ride. And yeah, it's an interesting part that it's most directors would like try to find the humanity in the character, whereas like Scorsese tries to find the lack of humanity in the audience.
Which is so interesting in the
Richard.
casting.
Nice.
Because, like, DiCaprio is such an everyman, eh? Like, you kind of, he's cool. You want to be DiCaprio. Even,
he's as cool as the Osage murders.
Not my, hey,
AJ.
Not my description necessarily, Aaron, of an everyman. I don't know if I describe
Yeah, that's true.
an everyman as someone everyone wants to be.
That's true. Maybe it's the opposite. He's who we all aspire to be, but he also feels like, you know, something we could potentially be, because he's not like, you know, he's put on some weight, etc., etc. He's like
Say you don't think Leonardo DiCaprio is hot. Say the words, Aaron.
He's still hot, man, but he's like less chiseled than he once was.
He's achievable hot now.
Yeah, exactly. We could all be that hot, maybe with a lot of work. Yeah, no, you're right. It really does play a sort of like a switcheroo that you're like, this is going to be our vessel through the whole film. And then you're like, no, the vessel is like the worst guy. This is you. You are the worst. You suck. Which I guess is maybe why it's appropriate for, I don't know, vaguely appropriate for a white director to kind of tell that story.
Well, it's the same kind of thing about like, you talk to someone about like Breaking Bad, and it's like, when did you stop rooting for Walter? And some people, it's like, oh my god, right away, he cooked meth, are you kidding me? And then some people, it's like,
He said the F word.
only in the first couple episodes, but like, then, you know, and some people it's like, you know, season 4 finale, some people it's season 5, and then some people, you know, we're still rooting for him right to the end. That like, you watch Kills the Flower Moon and you want to believe, oh no, he's just being manipulated by Hale, Robert De Niro's character. And it's like, when did you stop believing that he was, you know, just a pawn in this? And again, I think it's different for a lot of people about like when you click onto that. For me, it was when I read the Wikipedia page afterwards.
I
He
think
was a villain, but he just likes money.
but he's Leonardo DiCaprio. And I think Ernest Burkhart is a really fascinating character to center in the story, because he is the stupidest character in the story. And I think that's a really interesting angle to take. And ultimately, my favorite thing about the movie was that he basically, the character gets to the point where he's like, the only way I can achieve freedom is to be honest. Like, the truth will set me free, basically, right? So he cops to everything. His
Almost
name
everything.
is...
You can't quite.
Thank you. That's what I'm sort of gearing up to, is that he's able to, like the lesson he is regularly learning across the movie is, in order to earn your wife's love, this woman you are legitimately in love with, I think the film is telling you, in order to earn her love, you need to come clean on everything, and he's always too scared.
You need to become earnest.
you need to become Ernest Burkhart. And then he gets all the way to, like, you know, his name and his legacy and his uncle's name has been exposed. He's going to prison, and she's like, "What were you slipping me in my drink?" And he says he doesn't know. And it's like, at the final hurdle, it's like, fuck you, Ernest Burkhart. You actually don't deserve love, because you are once again faced with the challenge you've been overcoming the whole movie, and you once again step away.
You're
from
just
telling
too much
the
of a
truth.
wiener.
Yeah, which is a great character arc. I think that's really interesting. I will say I like this movie a lot, but no,
Too long.
I never,
Too long.
Too long. Well, that sort of is going
not
on what I
very
was
funny.
saying because it's not funny at all. No, I got really excited by the "Can you find the wolves in this picture" from the trailer, and I think that is on a graph. That's where I was most hyped by this movie, was watching the first trailer.
Yeah.
Like, that promised me like a movie that didn't quite.
It's gonna have like a hide and seek element to it.
Some sort of wolf shows up, I believe.
I was looking for a
Killers of
wolf.
the Flower Moon. They presumably go to space at some point, and there's like some sort of space murderer.
The
There's a wolf.
Yeah, I will say one thing that I want to talk about is that when the film came out, a lot of people taking to the various social medias to talk about is Brendan Fraser's performance in the film. That hot, first film after his Oscar win, his big comeback, and just the most insane performance as the lawyer. And I've defended it by being like, well, like the character is putting on a little bit as well. I don't think this is necessarily.
I also
Brendan
think
Fraser.
it's like, wow, do you get somebody to play the lawyer, or do you get somebody to play the lawyer?
Yeah.
Anyone you pick is going to be like doing a big thing if they're a name.
Yeah.
You know?
I thought it was a fucking hilarious performance.
What do you think, Aaron?
Of the performance, I honestly can't remember it. What?
He plays the lawyer, and there's the scene where they like first go to court, and he's trying to get the trial delayed or mistrial or whatever, and he like stands up and he's like, "My client," and just like this insanely large performance.
Oh, when he's telling off Ernest, and he's like, "You stupid boy!" I was like, "What are you doing, man? This is such a strange performance."
The most acting. He's doing the most acting.
Give him the Oscar again.
Yeah,
Give him the damn Oscar.
Bradley Cooper watches the film. He's like, "Damn, Brendan's got it."
I did the
Brendan's somehow
prosthetics.
beating me for best lead actor. Even though he's a supporting actor at best in this.
How beautiful were some of the shots, though? You got to say that, like, a lot of the shots in the movie were pretty incredible. Some of the stuff, like the train shots, the final shot with the
like the drone
is
shot,
it a powwow. That's the like dancing ceremony. Yeah, what an amazing thing to end on. Yeah, I think that's one of the main things that struck with me is like, yeah, the quality of the filmmaking was clearly very high. Some of those scenes with the like acting, like, between Lily Gladstone and Leonardo DiCaprio when they're kind of falling in love or whatever are pretty beautiful scenes.
Well, that's the thing
but
as well,
yeah,
that it's
overall,
like he's this evil guy, but like their meet cute and their first conversations are actually adorable. Like,
yeah.
You do feel for their relationship in a sense.
Yeah, and because it's hard won as well, it's not like she like lets him in. You're like, oh, he worked so hard to get into her life, and now like he's just awful. He's murdering all of her.
The literal murder of her family members.
Yeah,
but Lily Gladstone, phenomenal performance in the movie, and would love to see her take home an Oscar. I'm guessing it's going to be between her and Emma Stone.
Which
have
is
you
sad.
seen her?
She should be nominated. I reckon she would kill in the much derided supporting actress nominations this year, because I think that's a supporting character.
Yeah, it's that weird thing where she's a supporting character, but she's the lead actress.
I could be wrong, but I feel like she was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for some of the other like industry awards, because I seem to remember. And maybe that's like kind of the thing as well that forced Margot Robbie out was that like they moved some people from categories, because they sometimes do that, eh?
Yeah,
Well, theoretically, no. It's all just pure, unadulterated Oscar maths.
it looks like she's actually a lead everywhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
She
I feel like I
won
saw
lead
her
actress
being...
at the Golden Globes
Ah, okay.
for
My
drama, but I
apologies
think
then.
Poor Things was a comedy. So, but yeah, I think supporting based on just the front runners and shit. I think supporting is Divine Joy Randolph from The Holdovers. She's the favorite for that.
From the greatest movie of all of these Oscar movies.
I'm very excited to watch The Holdovers. I haven't seen it yet. All right, one film left to talk about. 3, 2, 1. Oppenheimer. AJ.
Oppenheimer.
Yeah, thank you. Finally, we agree, AJ. So,
I agree, AJ. It is better than all these movies we've talked about.
so Oppenheimer, the most nominated film with 13 nominations. I can see if I can quickly pull those up for you guys.
Thank you.
Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for Cillian Murphy, Supporting Actor for Robert Downey Jr., who's very much the favourite in that category, Supporting Actress for Emily Blunt, Adapted Screenplay for Christopher Nolan, Original Score for Ludwig Göransson, Best Sound, Production Design, Cinematography, Makeup and Hairstyling, Costume Design, and Editing.
All right, let's go through them again, and we'll all quickly say if we think Oppenheimer should get it.
Okay.
Go in reverse order.
Film Editing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Costume Design.
No.
No.
No. Makeup and Hairstyling.
No.
No.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that's not the most obvious. Although the aging of Cillian Murphy is pretty good. Cinematography.
Sure.
Probably.
Not upset at this winning.
Production design. I would have to give it to
not.
Barbie. That's like
Yeah. Or Poor Things.
yeah. Sound. I would give it to this.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nolan having struggled with sound for years is like the sound is the best part of the film.
He had his Through the Spider-Verse. Was it Through the Spider-Verse? Across the Spider-Verse? And now he's perfected his craft.
Original score.
God, you've really highlighted how much lamer of a word through is than across, Aaron. I'm going to be thinking about that for a...
Oh, really?
They
You were
called
like,
it
through
the Spider-Verse.
Dumb. Across. Yeah, that is better.
Across, yeah.
Now we're talking.
Original score, which, for the record, is up against American Fiction, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which shouldn't be in there. Kills the Flower Moon, which is a posthumous nomination for Robbie Robertson, and Poor Things. I'd probably give it to Oppenheimer, or maybe Robbie Robertson.
I don't think I remember enough about the music in Oppenheimer or any of these movies, except for maybe Poor Things.
Or Indiana Jones, because it has the famous theme song. Supporting actor, adapted screenplay for Christopher Nolan. Up against? Sorry. American Fiction, Barbie, randomly. Poor Things, Zone of Interest.
Sure. I don't know. Maybe.
I've not seen Zone of Interest, but yeah, I think maybe.
Supporting actress for Emily Blunt.
No, shouldn't have been nominated. Again, a pitiful category this year, I think.
Supporting actor for Robert Downey Jr.
I think it should go to Ryan Gosling, but I think Robert Downey Jr. is deserving.
No. Actor for Cillian Murphy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Director for Nolan.
Yes.
And Best Picture.
Sure. I mean, Best Picture it's not my favourite, but I'm happy with it winning Best Picture.
Yeah. I take it back for Best Actor. I don't know, man. I'm still split between him and Paul Giamatti.
Oh, yeah.
Thinking about it. They're just two very different kind of performances, which I guess we can get to when we actually talk about the holdovers, but just very, very different things.
So,
right.
So Oppenheimer, like, I have been trashing Nolan since Interstellar came out. And even after watching after watching Oppenheimer, and like going into it, I was like, oh, one of his big fucking historical epics. Oh, it's gonna be 3 hours long. Oh god. And then like once before I went into it, sort of having that realization that it's like, oh, a film about, one of these films about the great geniuses of history, but about someone who fucking regrets what they did. I was like, that's a great idea for a film. And then watching the film I think there's specific scenes in it that are far and away the best thing Nolan's ever done. I think the Trinity Test scene itself is best scene of the year, best scene of Nolan's career. I think it's so well done. The restraint he showed in that, so good. And then immediately the scene after that where he's giving the speech, I was like, this is better than the last scene. But my journey with Oppenheimer has kind of become like, it's weird. We don't often get a film like this earlier in the year that's like, oh, it'll totally win Best Picture, and then at this point in the conversation, it still probably will. Normally it changes by now, or it's like it loses steam and then comes back up, but it's been at the top of the conversation the whole time. And it's interesting because also like Nolan winning Best Director, which he hasn't won before, is that like these like film bro directors, like the modern auteurs, and I would put like Nolan, Wes Anderson, Tarantino, David Finch is kind of on the outskirts of it. That like it's mainly Tarantino, Nolan, and Anderson. These three directors that have like such a distinctive style, such like a appeal to a certain type of audience, and I think that this is Nolan's opus in the same way that I think Inglourious Bastards was Tarantino's, although if you ask Tarantino, he would say that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was his, and that for Wes Anderson it was Grand Budapest. And I think that just the way the stars have aligned, those weren't the strongest in their year necessarily, but I think Oppenheimer is, or at least is, good enough to be at the cream of the crop. And, you know, one of these directors now can actually be awarded all these top awards, you know, almost like a legacy award, but it also actually has one of the best films of the year.
That's such an interesting way of thinking about it, eh? Or like a lens through which to look at something like that, because it feels right. And so many times with the Oscars, they like do these things kind of retrospectively, eh? Where they're like, yeah, you're a really great director, and probably this isn't your best film, but like, here's an Oscar anyway, because like body of work. Whereas like now is probably the right time.
Which is an interesting thing to do for Nolan specifically, because the Academy have kind of been too good for him until recently as well. I think what you're saying, Richard, is stuff I would all like to agree with, but if I'm being honest, this is probably in my bottom half of Nolan movies, to be honest.
Still like The Dark Knight.
I do still like The Dark Knight, and there's nothing wrong with that. No, I don't know. I think, like, I've been in a bad mood with him since Tenet, so I did want to like this. I wanted him to earn my forgiveness.
You see, I wanted to hate it. I wanted to lose my forgiveness.
I will say, I'm surprised, like, it's a very dense, complicated movie. I'm surprised it's such a general hit with general audiences. Like, it's something that... you know, I would consider myself an avid movie watcher, and I like am not following 100% of the story at all times. You know, like, and maybe that's because I'm stupid.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
but what I think is interesting though is like how different this is from Tenet, and I'm thinking about it, like, despite the distinctive style, I want to play a game. I think Christopher Nolan has two types of movies. I think he has smart movies, and I think he has dumb movies. And I think this is what he's designating them. Give me a Nolan movie, I'll try say if I think it's a smart Nolan or a dumb Nolan.
Oppenheimer.
Smart.
Memento.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Memento, smart.
Inception.
Actually, no. Memento, dumb. Inception, dumb.
Interstellar.
Oh.
Interstellar, smart.
The Prestige.
The Prestige, dumb.
Dunkirk.
Smart. Oh, very smart. His smartest one, potentially.
I don't necessarily agree with everything you've just said, but I agree with the thing that, like, I think, especially probably after Dark Knight, after he was done with the Dark Knight trilogy, he split into two, and he has been alternating making films I love and films I don't like, and it's like
it's sort of year about, eh?
Like there's the so far up its own arse, like, so mindfucky, you can't even follow this because it's so smart. And I would call Interstellar and Tenet dumb movies. Those are movies that are supposed to make you think they're so smart because you don't understand them, because they're actually just dumb movies. And then I think that Dunkirk and Oppenheimer are incredibly smart films, and it's like all of the good parts of Nolan's filmmaking have made Oppenheimer and Dunkirk, and all the pretentious bullshit has made Tenet and Interstellar.
Yeah.
I
It's
think
so
what
broad.
I'm well, I think what I'm singling out is like, is this a movie that is like there's just this organic, authentic look at something, or is this a movie based around a gimmick? Which I think Tenet absolutely is. Inception absolutely is. I think that the Dark Knight trilogy is an interesting thing to look at through this lens, because those are the ones I'm not sure about. Because I think you'd be inclined to go, dumb, it's Batman, it's a superhero. Of course it's the dumb type of Nolan movie. But then, like, the actual substance in those movies, especially the first two, is so intellectual that it's like, well, maybe they are smart movies. I don't know.
But yeah, the Batman thing is an interesting kind of lens to look at Nolan's like whole kind of career through, right? Because the first one is like kind of a small, intimate, like almost indie take on a like superhero movie, and then the second one is kind of like massive blockbuster, kind of also meets that like a little bit more art house nuanced sensibility, and
Very,
then the
very
third one
Michael
is like
Mann-esque, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And then the third one kind of becomes this like massive blockbuster, which is, I guess, that kind of tension between his works that maybe you guys are talking about. Is that like, you know, like I really love The Prestige because it's like a really intricately constructed like thing, but it's not this like massive, oh, look how many special effects I can put in this movie. Look how much science and backstory I can put in that no one cares about. You know, so there is that kind of tension. And I think Interstellar sits as like a kind of thing that sort of maybe in the same way that A Dark Knight Rises, or The Dark Knight rather, sits at, which is like it balances those things quite well, I think.
I think that, yeah, that's like a great point you've brought up, that it's like, I almost think that the pressure and Nolan's preference for being forced to make event films and blockbusters is actually kind of a hindrance now. That, yeah, if he could only be allowed to, or had the desire again to make smaller films, I think, you know, we wouldn't
be so
get, like,
interesting,
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if he's ever going to go back to that kind of thing, and I mean, you know, maybe he shouldn't, but yeah. It is. I do want to just talk about Robert Downey Jr.'s performance in the film as well, because that's one of the big things that everyone was talking about. And I saw an interview with Robert Downey Jr., and I've seen Nolan talk about the same thing as well, is that, like, you know, you have Robert Downey Jr., and, you know, like I said earlier, one of the most consequential casting decisions of all time. And then...
Yes, Richard, like you said earlier, not Christopher Nolan.
I did say I was quoting Nolan earlier. Everyone knows I was quoting Nolan earlier.
As I was quoted as famously saying,
but that, like,
casting
Robert Downey Jr. since 2008 has just been Iron Man to the world. He did Drop It Thunder, he did The Judge, he did Due Date, and didn't do a lot of stuff in between his Marvel films because he was, you know, highest paid actor in the world, so he didn't need to. And then afterwards he made Dolittle. It fucking crashed. It was terrible. But he, playing Lewis Strauss, is that he said, Nolan talking about when casting him, is that, like, you watch him in Iron Man and the Avengers films, and there is such like a presence in the scene and gets the best out of everyone around him, and that's the sort of thing he wanted. But in their first meeting, he told Robert Downey Jr., like, you don't have, like, your charisma, you don't have, you know, your star power, any of this. And so he deliberately took away all of Robert Downey Jr.'s tools that he's been using as an actor to play Iron Man, and also his public persona. He took all of that away, and that kind of allowed him to do his best performance. And, like, because, you know, you watch Due Date and he's playing a version of himself or of Iron Man, but yeah, it's such a different performance, and especially after Dolittle, one that I didn't know if he was still capable of.
Yeah, what a comeback story this is of Dolittle, and I wonder if his experience in Dolittle being the bomb it was, what is, like, informed Lewis Strauss, whose experience is not dissimilar to, like, an actor on top having a massive flop, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. This is a great film. It's like...
What are you sorry for?
Because you hated it.
I'm not mad. I didn't hate it. I'm not mad.
Okay, calm down.
I'm not mad!
Oh, God.
It is
so loud.
Funny, though, that, like, for over a decade, that Warner Brothers was, like, had Christopher Nolan in their pocket, and then they lost him, he went to Universal, and is now probably going to win them a bunch of Oscars, and also made a near $1 billion film, which is a 3-hour R-rated, biopic about the father of the atomic bomb, which is like an insane thing to be one of the third highest grossing film of the year. Like the you think, okay, what are the highest grossing films of 2023? Super Mario Bros. Movie, Barbie, yeah, of course. A 3-hour R-rated biopic about J. Robert Oppenheimer? That's insane.
Which is narratively confusing in parts as well. Like, people have gone back to see it again.
Yeah,
you know?
I think that if it wasn't for Barbenheimer, it would probably have, I would say, like half the box office, if that.
Would have been a tough year at the films.
At the pictures.
At the pictures. Those poor movie execs would have been sitting there like, oh, tough year, mate. Maybe we can't pay these actors. Maybe we can't give in to these strikes.
Yeah.
Maybe they shouldn't have.
Maybe we shouldn't make movies anymore.
Maybe we should just get into AI.
Wow.
Exclusively make AI films.
And with that, that brings us to the end of Oscars Cheat Sheet Part 1. So join us
Which
again.
we didn't explain because we've been doing this for a few years, but it's called Cheat Sheet so that you guys can know what to think about these movies at cocktail parties.
Yeah.
Adopt our opinions was the original idea.
You can go to work and be like, oh, actually, I heard this guy on the podcast talking about how Robert Downey Jr.'s casting in Iron Man was one of the most consequential.
Totally. And listeners, you don't have to say which podcast or who the guy that said it was. You already sound smart. You don't need to go into further detail than that.
Yeah, but by saying you heard it on a podcast, you sound smarter than if you said you'd seen it on TikTok, which is where I saw it.
Yeah, or I read a headline on Twitter.
Yeah. All right. So, join us again in, I think, 2 weeks' time, where we will be talking about...
So does that mean Film Franchise Fortnights is back next week?
That is the intention, but when we discussed this earlier, AJ was not at all up on the plan, so I wasn't putting you on the spot, but now I am very much putting you on the spot.
Are you excited for Film Franchise Fortnights to return next week, Aaron?
Can't wait. Absolutely can't wait. What franchise are we reviewing? Do we know?
It's a little secret.
It's a secret, but we are only doing 2 film franchises this year, so that narrows
film franchises with 2 films in it. We're doing more than 2 franchises.
I thought you were only doing 2. You're narrowing it down.
Yeah.
No.
It's a real interesting economic concept. Scarcity of resources.
Yes.
That's why we
that's
get
what you're
Aaron on.
doing.
That's why he's the king. So,
right.
follow us on... Yeah, AJ, you do it.
Follow us on all the places. We're on Twitter and Instagram /X and Instagram. And jump in our Discord. Tell us what you think is the best movie out of the 5 we've talked about today. And you can donate over on our Patreon, where you get all sorts of things like exclusive podcasts, including a new monthly podcast we're doing now called Home Improvement, where Richard and I take prompts from patrons and then try improv little scenes around it. We've done 1 episode so far.
There was also a little bonus show that people seem to enjoy. I released a little thing where I took you guys through some music that I've been listening to lately. I called it Dick's Tape, like mixtape, but my name is Richard. That's the whole title. And people seem to enjoy it, so I might do that monthly.
I'm so glad you reminded me of this. I have an idea for Dick's Tape, because
I should do it instead of you.
What if it was AJ's tape?
What if I got my dick out the whole time?
You have a segment, at least on the first episode, where you did a giveaway. So people recommend you a song, and the song you like most gets the giveaway. Is that correct?
An album, yeah.
I think that on the next episode of Dick's Tape, you should reveal the winner of which album you liked the most, and that segment, Richard, should be called Dick's Pick. Is that good?
Yeah, it's good.
That's good? Yeah. All right, well, tune in for that over on exciting things happening on the Patreon this year, guys. And you also get to give us
I will be doing a
post-credit
giveaway
scene.
on every episode as well, so
There you go.
keep an
Dick's
ear out.
pick for every
Tremendous.
episode. Stay tuned after this music ends for the post-credit scene, and we'll see you in 2 weeks with Aaron for the continuation of the Oscars cheat sheet, and we'll see you in 1 week with just me and Richard for us talking about a 2-film franchise, whatever that may be. Thank you so much for listening. See ya.
Aaron, would you like to join us for the post-credits?
I would love to.
Excellent.
Well,
Welcome
here it is.
along to the post-credit
Well,
scene.
you find yourself here.
This is a segment at the end of each episode where if you donate $5 or more over at patreon.com/Popture, you get to give us something in the post-credit scene, which is this very segment we're doing right now. Richard, who's it from and what is it?
Today's one comes to us from Jake, who says, what is a topic you are very knowledgeable about that most people listening right now wouldn't know you knew about?
Or this is like when I get asked on Tinder what my hobbies are and they're all movie related. I'm just a movie guy. That's all I am.
Or like, what skills do you have? I don't know, man. I'm not sitting here crafting some skills.
Richard, you go first.
Well,
What's
none,
your
none,
my
of,
backflips?
none of mine are particularly out of character. My big one is escape rooms. I mean, I was gonna say that one thing that I know a lot about, or like, is because I watch a lot of, is fail army compilations. Is that like
This is like me with my ghost caught on camera video genre.
There's I think that and this is something that, you know, doing Dick's tape and anal bum every day on Instagram has
I'm sorry. Did you just say, you said Dick's tape, and then what did you say
I said
after that?
anal bum every day on Instagram. Chuck me a follow, Aaron. I've been listening to an album every day on and I've been posting about it on Instagram, and hilariously my handle is at an album every day. But of course, when you see it written down, it looks like anal bum.
And
It took me a while, but I got there.
Between this and Dick's tape, you really get a sense of what Cult Popture would be if my input was not put into, like, at very least, the titling, the packaging of our shows.
Yeah, package.
The highest rated R18 podcast in the world.
But I think there's a lot of music genres that I'm quite into that people don't expect, and I think it's hard because, especially, you know, for you and I, AJ, we reveal so much about ourselves on this podcast that a lot of the things that I surprise people with my knowledge of are things like, I've seen every Barbie movie, but of course people listening to this would know that. But yeah, I think when you first meet me, you know, especially depending on the circumstances you meet me, like if I'm a friend of a friend, you might get a very specific idea of, because of the way I look and the way I act when I'm shy around new people, that I have, I think, a lot more eclectic interests than people might assume. I'm pretty confident that, like, anyone's movie taste or music taste, I can probably find a common ground with them. And just because of I'm a pop culture nerd, that, like, if your favorite artist is, or your favorite genre is like super bubblegum pop, I can probably have a conversation about that with you where I'm pretty knowledgeable about it. Same way if it's, you know, 80s dad rock, or even if it's like heavy metal, that, like, I think my general knowledge about most things is good enough that I can. Yeah.
Do you think it's general knowledge about those things, or like specific knowledge about specific aspects of those things that you can, like, use as an umbrella to talk more
Well, I mean, that's the
broadly?
thing, that it's like you're learning enough specific facts about things is like, it makes you seem like an expert because you're like, oh, this obscure thing, I know this one fact about it.
I'm real bummed out because I'm trying to think of the answer to this question of what is it about me that is not movie or pop culture related that might surprise people to know I know a lot about it. And I think the only thing I can think of as an answer is probably because I grew up in a church. which I am no longer a part of, I am probably surprisingly more knowledgeable on the secret lives of youth leaders than people might expect me to be, right? Like that's probably my niche. That's probably what I know about that your average person doesn't know about is various biblical things, which, to be honest, even as a Christian, I was pretty rusty on. Or in general, like, I'd like, because no, what the answer could be like video editing, but again, that's not surprising anyone. But it's the thing I know probably the most about, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is frustrating. This is a frustrating question for me because I'm realizing that what this means is I put my whole self into the podcast.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, this is easier
interesting about
for,
some
like,
of it.
if you're meeting someone new and it's like, what's something that I might not think you know a lot about? That's a lot easier than, like, hey, these people that have listened to hundreds of hours of you talking.
9 years of podcast.
Of your life.
So, Aaron, take us home. What about you?
I was trying to think as well. I think probably the only notable thing is that although I spent upwards of $50,000 on a degree in acting, currently my main source of income is accounting.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting when you consider the fact that I stopped doing maths when I was like 14
He can't even
years
work it out
old.
because he's so bad at maths.
He's so dumb. He's such a stupid maths guy. Yeah. I was like in the advanced maths class, so we did like year 11 maths and year 10, and you like at that point in our lives you had to like the like requirement for students was you had to do it up until year 11, and so I did it in year 10 and I finished it, and they were like, so year 12, and I was like, no thank you.
When am I going to need numbers?
Interesting, because I too gave up maths after year 11 maths. I was year 11 in this case. I gave up after year 11 and was like, no way am I doing it. You're telling me you were so good. I was so bad at maths, which is why I gave up. You're telling me you're so good at maths, Aaron, that you clocked it before you'd even reached the optional endpoint. You were already good at maths.
I wish I could say that, AJ, but I honestly don't think I was that good at maths. I think
you were just stupid, AJ.
Yeah, you fucking dumbass. Actually, I feel like the year 10 year of maths was pretty traumatic. Like, we skipped a year of like mathematics, so suddenly you're like, okay, you know this new body of knowledge you're supposed to have? Yeah, all these symbols you're supposed to know about, well, you just have to know. And the second thing was we had this guy teaching us who was like an old angry man, like an old British man who was really angry. And like he famously said to us once, how am I supposed to teach you boys if you don't know anything? And it's like, that is precisely your job.
Yeah.
And also one time someone was like, hey, what's that massive dent in your whiteboard up there? And he was like, that's when one of the lads threw a milk bottle at me. So someone had like thrown a milk bottle at this
like
guy
a regular
in class.
Paul Giamatti and the Holdovers, Aaron. I'm surprised. A movie I haven't seen, but I've edited the.
As far as I'm aware,
is
is about like an angry Scottish maths teacher.
I think he was from Northern England, but yeah.
I didn't get that from your accent, Darren.